You're listening to Get Down to Business, and we continue our conversation with entrepreneurs. I'm thrilled to be joined by Mike Sobel, joining me here in studio. Mike, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
So, Mike, you are in the signage business, but I believe that's just an understatement because you're in the branding business. Let's talk a little bit about what's the name of your company?
Mark Your Space.
Mark Your Space. Okay, and that is indeed what you do. So, Mike, tell us your story and how you got into this line of work.
Sure. Did about 20 years in the financial industry and got laid off and decided I wanted to do something to help myself. And I did some branding at HSBC and kind of took that to the next level. I try to help small, medium, and large-sized businesses manage their brand.
That's great. And tell us the difference between signage and branding.
Sure. Most places you'll call and they'll make you a sign. I'm going to give you a lot of advice. I'm going to make sure that there's congruency between your sign, your website, your vehicle wrap. I want the whole package to talk to your company, and so people recognize your company immediately.
So I love to role play over here and go through a scenario. So somebody tuning in here tonight, they have a service business, and they're a small business owner, and they give Mark Your Space a call. And what solutions would you potentially provide to them?
If they're just looking for a vehicle wrap?
Well, they want to know, what should I be doing?
Oh, sure. If they're service-based and they travel, I obviously would recommend vehicle wraps. Vehicle wrap works for you 24/7. It's a small investment that lasts 5 to 7 years. Definitely pretty easy to get a positive ROI off of something like that. If they have a retail space, definitely need to, real good positive signage, the lighted sign on the front. Make sure if you have a panel on your monument sign to take that. But also your window graphics, depending on who else that they're with in terms of who else is in that strip, there might be a lot of walk-by traffic that could see the window graphics that they have.
Interesting. So vehicle wrapping is something that everybody sees. Everybody drives on the highway and they see trucks that have branding on the side. Probably most of our listeners have not thought about that method of branding for their own small business. Is that something that's expensive? Because often you see the big brands and the big names doing it. How can a small business afford it?
Actually, your typical Transit's anywhere between $2,300 to $3,500, depending on which model you have. Some, the ones with the high roofs are much bigger. So it's depending on the price tag of your service. It's pretty easy to recoup your money.
That's great. That's fantastic. And marketing is a big business. Many of our listeners have many marketing consultants, somebody that designed their logo, somebody that's printing their pens and their business cards and all sorts of things. At Mark Your Space, do you work with those other branding experts and sort of making sure that there's a consistent message?
Absolutely. In fact, with most medium-sized companies and definitely the larger companies, we'll either work directly with the marketing firm that they've hired to execute these projects, and we provide them not only with the executed project, but with a lot of advice on maybe how to change their design to fit real life, because what a car looks like in 2D and what it looks like in 3D can be two different things. And so you get weird stuff like door handles and when you open the door, what things look like, stuff like that.
Very interesting. So, Mike, I want to go back to your story because you mentioned that you had a successful career and then ultimately got laid off, but then you started Mark Your Space. Mm-hmm. You're giving advice to small business owners, and you could relate because you are one. Tell us, what was the biggest shock of going into business on your own? What was the biggest surprise, and perhaps what advice would you share with somebody that's listening here tonight?
Sure. I think I started my business in the trough of an economy, not exactly the place I would recommend starting. The second piece of advice I give to most people is, if you can, don't start from scratch, because I compare your business to a snowball. And as that snowball gets bigger, it throws off repeat business and referrals and things like that. And so the bigger your snowball is when you start, the quicker it starts growing quickly.
You've been involved in networking. When I look up your name, I see that you've been involved in some networking groups, chambers, and so on. Where have you been involved in that has been helpful in building your business?
Sure. I was on the board of directors for the Bartlett Chamber of Commerce. That was very helpful. I also got to serve on the Economic Development Commission because of that for the city of Bartlett. I also find that the other chambers are very useful, but you have to put something in to get something out. Business just doesn't come flying to you because all of a sudden you show up and have a beer in your hand.
So, Mike, you've been in business for, I believe you're celebrating 10 years in business, starting this, as you said, in I think your words were the trough of the economy, 2009. And now we're, believe it or not, in 2019. You shared some of your branding advice and some of the branding solutions that you provide. What's your outlook in the coming years, just regarding the small business community in general, but specifically, what are the new things that you and your colleagues are looking at in helping small business owners brand?
So my outlook is actually very positive. I think the economy is doing well. It should continue to at least stay where it's at. Hopefully we don't see anything horrible. As far as what will be changing, I try to bring that big branding experience to the smaller businesses, and as soon as I find people that really value that, I really enjoy helping them, and so does my team. Sure. And when we all get on board, we do our best to make sure that we can help our customers increase their sales.
Mike, you mentioned earlier that you served on the Economic Development Commission in Bartlett. You've served on the Chamber of Commerce. Signage is a complex area, as I've personally discovered. It's something that often is regulated just because the business wants to put up big, flashy things that will get a lot of attention. Doesn't mean that they're allowed to do that. There's often permits that are involved as well. Is your team involved in that process? Yes.
We'll handle the permitting process for our clients from day one through finish. We'll help them get variances if necessary. And that's another thing we try to do proactively is counsel them on, hey, they want the stars, but there's rules in place, and sometimes you just have to live with that.
So geographically, what is the service area that you cover?
We actually service the entire United States with the exception of Alaska and Hawaii.
Wow. So how would somebody get their vehicle wrapped somewhere remotely?
So we would produce that wrap here, and we would ship it out to installers. So we have clients who are national clients, and that's what we do. So we produce every single wrap for them, so they're always the same color, they're the same design types, etc. We ship it out to a local installer to them.
I asked earlier in the program to your predecessor on the show, and I asked about an example. Let's talk about a success story, a branding success story.
Sure. What comes to mind is one of my larger companies, Kona Elevator and Escalator, and the reason that they value us is that we manage the project. So they open and close offices all over the country and build new offices, and we brand the outside and the inside. So we save them tons of man hours on their side. We also kind of are the police for corporate, and we kind of enforce brand because each of these managers want to do their own thing. And, individuals want to run and do their own thing, and corporate doesn't want that to happen, and we kind of get to be the bad guy for them.
Very interesting. So you've, as mentioned, you've been in the big corporate world, and now you're in the world of small business. Has it been everything you expected it to be? Are you having fun?
Absolutely. I am happier than I could ever be.
Okay. So Mind Your Space has been around for 10 years. We've been chatting with Mike Sobel, the man in charge, a national firm helping with branding for all sorts of businesses. I'm going to ask, again, a question I asked earlier. Are there any specific industries that you say, hey, that is perfect and we can do an amazing job, in any industries that you don't work with?
We actually handle most industries. There's not any industry that I can think of off the top of my head that we stay away from. We do very well in the healthcare area. They do a lot of signage as well as kind of public works.
Oh, fantastic. So everybody listening, again, regardless of whether you're in products or services, has a brand, hopefully, and they need to mind their space, and so know their space. And I would love for you to share your contact information so people can get in touch.
Sure. It's Mark Your Space Inc., and the Inc. is INC for Incorporated.com.
Mark Your Space. That's fantastic. Mike Sobel, thank you so much for joining me here on the air. Appreciate it. Let's share that website one more time.
Sure. Mark Your Space Inc.
markyourspaceinc.com. Mike Sobel, thank you so much for joining me on the air. Be sure to keep us posted with your branding advice and expertise. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, you're listening to Get Down to Business, the show all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. Get on my website, shalomklein.com. That's where you can download podcasts from past shows, get a sneak peek of who will be on next week. On the show all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship, we're powered by our friends at Tandem HR, your solution center. Give them a call, 630-928-0510, 630-928-0510, or visit their website, tandemhr.com. We're going to be back after some headlines and some quick announcements with more about business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. Chicago, don't touch that dial. We'll be right back.
Winter stinks.